All right, so welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us for this fifth and last of the CSEP sessions of this year. We finish our series of the 5 webinars today, in which the 20 Civil Society Empowerment Program or the CSEP projects present their outcomes, their lessons learned, and recommendations of their online PCVE campaigns to a broad audience, so to you today. We have 2 projects with us who will present their campaigns and their lessons learned today. And these are the Commit project and the Breaking the ISIS brand. And after their presentations, we'll first have the 2 presentations, and then we will have a Q&A session with all of our 4 presenters who are then able to answer any questions that you might have. Before we get started with the presentations, I would like to share a few practical announcements. First of all, my name is Lieke Wouterse. I'm part of the RAN practitioner staff, and I will be moderating the session. With me are my colleagues Maarten and Anne, who are the technical moderators of today. So if you have any technical issues, please address them to Anne or Maarten. This is Anne van der Meij, I have to say, by the way, because we also have a speaker called Anne. In addition, please mute yourself and turn off your camera while we have the presentations. I do need to mention that the session is being recorded. An edited version of this recording will be published on our YouTube channel in due time. If you do not wish to appear on the recording, then please only write your questions either in the chat or in the Q&A function. You can find the chat at the right bottom of your screen, and the Q&A section is a bit hidden right next to the chat. You should be able to see 3 dots, and if you click on the dots, you can open the Q&A panel. Other than that, if you don't mind to appear on the recording, please feel free to raise your digital hand during the Q&A session, and we can give you the floor. And after closing this session today, you will be redirected to our survey, which we would kindly like to ask you to fill in, as it always helps us to see what we can improve. So that being said, for all the practical announcements, I think we can introduce our first 2 speakers of today. These are Antonella Alessi and George Weiss from the Commit project, and they will take you along in their story of their campaign. So please, Antonella and George, go ahead.
Hi, everybody, and thank you for being here. It's a pleasure for me to present the project that me and other colleagues, other partners in Europe are carrying out during these past 2 years. I will share my screen so you can see a few slides about the Commit project. Should be able to see it now. The project I'm going to present is called Commit, Communication Campaign Against Extremism and Radicalization. The lead organization of this project is the organization I'm working for, the Center for Creative Development, Danilo Dolci. The project has been going on from the 1st of January of last year, and it will be ended next year at the end of June. So we are almost, we are actually in the very core of the project. You will see during the presentation. With this project, we address young people from 13 to 25 years old with the general objective of preventing them from extremism, radicalism, and terrorism by providing them with skills for developing and disseminating alternative and counter-narrative for the promotion of democratic value. And in the same time, we want to provide them with skills and competencies for identify and resist to online contents of intolerance and violence, so hate speech, fake news, and populistic propaganda. The project consortium is made by six organizations from 5 different European countries. We are located in Palermo, South Italy, and we work together with the University of Palermo. We are a non-profit organization. And we work in this project together with La Benevolencia from the Netherlands, and we are with my colleague George Weiss, who will present later on campaign of the project. And also we have Die Berate from Austria, CMOP from Greece, and TextGain from Belgium. The project has been structured in different stages. We address not only young people from 13, 25 years old, as already mentioned, but also university students, other CSOs, organizations, and other stakeholders. And we are combining online campaigning with offline activities, and especially different level of capacity building and trainings for the scope of keeping young people with competencies in these aspects. So first of all, we did a internal level of training for the project staff. A second training addressed to university students of communication, and a third step of workshops and training for young people, especially in schools. And the main objective, the main outcome of our project is a communication campaign, actually 3 communication campaigns about fake news, hate speech and populistic propaganda, extremism, radicalism and terrorism, and active bystandership and youth participation. The added value of this project is that our aim was and is actually to address both sides of the communication spectrum. So from one side, we want to address the senders. So we involved university students of communication as future media professionals. With the aim of changing the narrative on the social media, so to combating populistic propaganda and fake news, so giving them the competencies for creating and disseminating alternative and counter-narrative for a preventing objective, and also the recipients, so young people that can be vulnerable to extremist messages on the social media, empowering them for resist to these kind of messages, and giving them tools and competencies for developing their critical thinking and for a conscious use of social media. So the added value is that at the same time, young people are creators and recipients, because during all the workshops and training and seminars, all the activities done during these last months, the young people are empowered and then they become creators. So our campaign is actually really co-created together with the young people that we are involving in our project. So from youth to youth. Of course, we met some difficulties, some challenges during these 2 years, because actually our project started during the COVID, just before the COVID outbreak. So the first difficulty was to involve our target audience in an online mode for the part of the training. Another challenge was to how to combine the need to create a common campaign, since we are 5 different countries and willing to send a common message at European level, but at the same time the need to take into consideration the national specificities and the hyperlocal level, which is really an important feature for an effective communication. And the third challenge that we are going through and we are learning and facing now is actually how to really reach our target group, how to create really a powerful message for preventing extremism to young people. And until now, the main outcome is our campaign, which was launched last July, and it will be online until the end of the project, June 2022. And the title that we gave to this campaign is Hate, a Course in 3 Lessons. And now, in a minute, George will tell more about why we chose this. And we are on different social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. But actually, at the moment, we are more focusing on Instagram, but we are expanding in other social media. And we create an European campaign plus 4 national campaigns in our country. So I actually warmly invite you to go through our social media or also to our website, which is here, commitproject.eu, and you can like, share, and see actually what is going in our campaign. Now I leave the floor to George, who will tell more in depth about the characteristics and the structure of our campaign. And then we will be here for any question you have.
Okay, Antonella, but you have to continue changing the slides. Yes. Okay. So our organization came a little bit later into this campaign, and it was a time of discussion in order to a lot of discussion around designing such a campaign, and we all decided that we have to have some kind of a storyline, some kind of a storybook line to the campaign, and we have to have some kind of a provocative title. And and also we decided we're not just going to make posts about, oh, be nice people and counteract bad people, but we wanted to have an educational purpose involved in the whole campaign, and that is to give the people that are following us tools for self-awareness in terms of the trigger buttons that are being pushed with them when they are facing dangerous speech, incitement, recruitment of any kind of thing. Wait a second, I have to make this less loud. So their Hate, a Course in 3 Lessons came about. This is part of actually some running of different campaigns that are happening. Also, we are basing ourselves basically on experiences that have been made in Africa during 20 years of broadcasting soap operas that are bringing those triggers forward to audiences in Rwanda, Burundi, and the Congo, and also on our other project that is running simultaneously, which is dealing with the same subject matter within the area of video gaming. But this here is a frontal campaign, meaning we're going out to people and we're trying to tell them something, and we're trying to gain followers. So the first part, so it's so-called metaphorical lessons that we're dealing with, and so the whole thing is actually based on something that we call the Continuum of Violence, which is based on the work of some psychologists in the United States, notably Irvin Staub, who came forward with a comparison of different societies that faced hate speech and genocide. And the first thing that happens is the combination of hate speech in a period of fear or in a period of social isolation. So the first lesson, which we ran now during the last couple of months of posts, is called Fear and Hate, an Intimate Relationship, which obviously focuses on how in a time of fear you become more receptive towards hate speech and fake news and populistic propaganda of all sides. And we look at different ways of how to present this to our people. Soon, I think from now on, we have entered the second phase, which we call lesson 2, which is in-grouping and scapegoating, how we love having enemies, which is basically about that, about when you are faced with a social isolation or with a crisis in society, you become receptive to fear and hate speech, but it is natural to look for a group. And it is when you have a group, the group needs to have a direction where to go to, and then talented people arise that have been doing the hate speech, and they point to scapegoating. They point to the easiest solution possible, which is embedded in their audience in terms of traumatic memories or different kinds of traditions or new enemies that appear, and they will always be outsiders of your group or outsiders in the shape of foreigners that appear. And last not least, when we reach, I think it will be in the beginning of next year, we will be running a campaign about the one thing that one can do against all of this, which is active bystandership. Active bystandership, I would say, is the opposite of the so-called bystander effect, which was researched a long time, in many years since the 1960s, talking about how groups of people do not tend to respond to help somebody thinking that somebody else would do that. It's some kind of dissolution of responsibility, and actually you can counteract this by thinking that you have agency and you are active, and you can actually just stand up in little ways or in bigger ways to this incitement that you're facing, or to your urge to in-group with the wrong kind of group, or to your urge to follow some kind of simple hate speech, and also seeing your neighbors do that, or seeing other people in your group do that. And the next thing we can show you is some posts that we made in that respect. I think that we have to go forward. Oh yeah, so we have actually one more thing. Yes. So as I said, self-awareness of the audience member's psychological trigger factors. We believe that that is actually one of the most important things you can try to embed when making a campaign towards people, trying to make them aware of themselves, of what is happening, and give them kind of solutions of how to deal with these psychological trigger factors. So basically, you find nowadays in a lot of schools, media literacy being started, in telling people in order to try to make people more resilient to fake news. And we argue very strongly that it is important to give them psychological literacy as well. Another thing that we do is we try to give audiences simple criteria that they can rely on themselves in order to judge if a post or if a speech that they hear is suspicious or not. And those are really very simple criteria. So if a speech addresses only one group instead of being universal, it's suspicious. If it's more emotional than other speeches, it's suspicious. And so on. In terms of giving them really very simple ways of just taking one step away from a post and try to deal with it without relying on algorithms or other agencies to weed out these hate factors. Active bystandership, in the last instance, needs to focus on feelings of agency. Most people actually do not have automatic feelings of agencies when they are within a group that is experiencing these push and pull factors that move them towards extremism. And our posts in that campaign that will be focusing on active bystandership will be focusing on that. Our campaign in general is, we see our campaign as a prototype campaign where we learn all the pitfalls of trying to make a social media campaign. It is simply, there's a lot of competition out there, and you really need to compete with people, or you need to target your audiences very clearly. And we are busy learning our lessons. We still have time, another 7 months doing these things. So we can show you a couple of posts that we have done. I think we just have 2 more posts because the time is short and we want to leave time, of course, to our colleagues. Here's a TikTok post that we're trying out. It has a bit of an annoying voice to it, but it is supposed to be fast and it works on a TikTok audience. Did you enable the audio settings by? Yes, I think so. Can you click on that?
The Continuum of Violence. How to incite people, an age-old art. The starting points for hostility and violence is the frustration of basic human needs. A sudden crisis appears in your life. The crisis generates fear. Social misery makes you feel bad about yourself. You look for a group to give you security and the support of a shared identity. Groups need enemies, and so you begin scapegoating others. But watch out, if the scapegoating continues, it will lead to violence. This is no joke. This is how it started before World War II, or more recently in Bosnia and Rwanda. In extreme cases, this can result in genocide. You don't want to be part of the fragmentation of our societies. We desperately need unity to handle our problems. Be aware of your fears and manage your emotions. Attack problems, not people.
Right, and then we have a variety.
The Continuum of Violence.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. We have a variety of different posts like that. Some are quicker, some are on reels, some are on single posts, and we have them. We create them in tandems actually between 2 different countries, which is actually not an easy thing to do because each country has different contexts and different mentalities, and so each week we work among 2 different countries like Greece and Austria, or the Netherlands and Italy. And we work out a theme, and we then post this in different channels and see what works best, and then repost it the next week with another tandem that creates those posts. Last not least, I think we can show you one more post with a very known character that was a great example for hate speech, and we couldn't leave him out. And this is about the love people experience when facing by their populist leaders.
It was a love fest.
I love war.
I love fighting with banks.
I love that Russia is dropping bombs all over ICE.
I love protesters.
I love the Second Amendment.
I love construction.
I love great generals. I love open markets. I love General MacArthur.
I love the United Nations.
My boy, I love you. Come up, Eric, come up. I love you, my boy.
Like, I love these comeback people.
I love what I'm doing.
I love banks. I love sports.
I love renovating.
I love that red hat.
I love women.
I love John Deere too.
Big, strong guy. I love you.
I love buying a building.
I love the old days.
I love your shirt.
I love the book.
I love Virginia.
I love Georgia. I love Mexico.
I love New Jersey.
I love South Korea. I love Japan.
I love China. I love everybody.
Yeah, that's about it for this one. So we continue in our campaign for another 7 months, experimenting, posting, learning lessons, and trying to make it better and better. Oh, okay. All right. More in the question and answer later.
All right, thank you very much to both of you, Antonella and George. I think that was very insightful already in what you've done so far, and very nice to see the movies, also the short clips that you've created, as well as all the different memes in the different languages. I haven't seen any comments also so far, so this is also a kind reminder to everyone that if you have a question for the commit campaign, please, you can already put it in either in the chat or in the Q&A section, which you will find just next to the chat. If you click on the three dots, that will open. So yeah, we will wait for the questions, which I'm sure are there, but we will address them in the Q&A later on. For now, then, I would like to continue with our second set of speakers, who are going to tell us all about the Breaking the ISIS brand campaign. So please, Molly and Anne, well, let us know what you did.
Okay, I'm going to start with our introduction to this. I'm Anne Speckard, and this Breaking the ISIS Brand EU project is part of a much larger project that was originally started by State Department in 2015, was later funded by Qatar, and had the support, and in this project also had the support of Facebook, which is pretty important, as I want to get to in a second. As we all know, ISIS was blanketing the internet, and it was really smart, and they've been credited with having great films. I like George's and Antonella's better, but they were credited with being really media savvy. But the truth was that they just were really great in coming up at the right time when social media opened the door for them. Because it used to be that terrorists had to go to journalists to spread their message. Now they can just put it on social media and reach a very wide audience to find out who reacts and then hone in on those people. So as we began to realize that, we started the ISIS brand project, and it was something that I always felt strongly about, that when we counter message, we can't just be cognitive, we have to be emotional. All good advertisers know this. The way you reach people is talking to their emotions. So we, in the Breaking the ISIS brand counter-narrative project, which also now is Breaking Al-Shabaab and also Escape Hate, which is on white supremacism, we use insiders to tell their stories, and that's based on 271 interviews that we've done with ISIS, to tell that it's brutal, un-Islamic, and corrupt. And we hopefully redirect them back out of it. But just in this opening, I want to say I've been involved in researching with Europeans and also talking to their lawyers about mounting their defenses when they come back to the EU. And it's been really interesting to me to see the prosecution jump all over them and say, you know, how could you have been so naive? It was all over the news of how brutal ISIS was, and so on. And in some cases, I really wanted to say, after I listened to Hoda Mathana, for example, who said she joined the Twitter sphere and got completely convinced as a very young woman and a naive young woman, because of the way she was raised, that she should travel to this utopian caliphate because she was convinced by everyone in her Twitter world that if she didn't, she would go to hell. Same thing with Facebook. The people joined communities and were convinced that this was the answer to their problems, just as George was just telling us, that this was the answer to their problems. So my question when I'm on those defense teams is, aren't social media companies also culpable? And shouldn't they be held to the exact same standard that the individuals are being held to when they come back and face justice? So in that regard, I say I'm very, very pleased that Facebook has supported this project wonderfully and supported this EU part of the project, getting a counter message out. And of course, they've also been instrumental in taking down all this content. So that's what I wanted to open with. And now I'm going to turn it over to Molly, because Molly Ellenberg did most of the work on this project, after the videos were made and the interviews were made, sending them out all over the EU. So over to you, Molly.
Thank you so much. So yeah, I'll start by going over our campaigns and then talking about some of the other activities that we've done as a part of this project and lessons learned where we see it moving forward. There we go. So the target audience was groups within the EU who are susceptible and vulnerable to online militant jihadist, radicalizing, and terrorist content, or those who have either been radicalized or on the brink of radicalization. And our content is not meant to de-radicalize somebody immediately. It's meant to pique their interest, to cause them to question what they may have heard, to have an emotional reaction to content that gives them a different message than what they've been hearing, that disputes what they may have been hearing from other propaganda online. So the call to action is to use these counter-narrative campaigns on Facebook. We did one on Instagram as well, to give these credible counter-narratives. And that's a key part of this, is to make sure that our target audience believes what they're hearing. And so we do this by using insiders, by using actual ISIS defectors, returnees, prisoners, talking about what they actually experienced in the group. So it's not coming from an actor, it's not coming from a government agent, it's coming from somebody to whom they can relate. And so we want to generate behavioral change, of course, boost resilience in terms of having an alternative narrative of what they can do in their lives in the EU to have a sense of purpose, a sense of identity that doesn't involve violence, that doesn't involve extremism, and then to inspire critical thinking and engagement in thoughtful discussions, which we measure through the comments. So we did 8 campaigns for this project. The 8th one is ending today, and because it's still the morning here in Washington, DC, I do not have the results for that one yet. But our first campaign was run in April of 2020, and you can see kind of what it looks like when people see it on their Facebook feed. They have the video, it says it's sponsored because we're paying for the ad credit, or we're paying in ad credits. And then it says that it's from an organization called The Real Jihad, which is a website that ICSVE runs that people can go to, that has blog posts and more videos and resources that are both on the ground and online that people can use to really go deeper into their challenges that they're having. So we did the first one in April. You can see already we were getting quite a few views, viewed in their entirety over 200,000 times. When I say retention rate, I mean the percentage of people who watch the video for 15 seconds and then finish it. Because that's really key, is that we want people to be engaged with the video, to have the video hold their attention. We did the second campaign in May 2020 on Instagram. As you can see, there's quite a drop-off. We realized that Instagram viewers really don't have the patience for a 1-minute video, maybe a shorter video, maybe graphics, which we've used as well in separate campaigns. So that was a big lesson learned there. And so then we did campaign 3 in July, having an even higher retention rate. Nearly 60% of people who watched the video for 15 seconds went on to finish it, leading to over 1 million complete views of the videos. Campaign 4, we did in 2 batches due to translation delays. All of the videos are run in 10 different languages across 8 countries. So that is definitely a big undertaking as well to get them translated. Campaign 5 and campaign 6. And when we see all of these different retention rates, something that we're going to be producing once we have all of the results in from campaign 8 as well, is looking at what are the factors that make people watch these videos for longer. Are there specific characteristics of the speakers, whether they're of European descent, whether they're of immigrant descent, whether they're a man, whether they're a woman, whether they show their face in the video or have it blurred, whether they use a name that's a real name versus a clear pseudonym. All of that is going to be produced a little bit later on. Campaign 7, and then campaign 8, I will actually use as an example so that you can all see what is being run today in these 10 different languages. So I've just used the English translation for ease today, right now.
I started to smoke a lot of weed actually. I used to smoke every few days, but a lot. I sort of started to change with my friends, etc. I used to get in fights a lot. I was sort of kind of thing. I feel like it came back to my real character when I found Islam. I used to spend hours alone on YouTube just looking at the atrocities that he was doing in Syria. So I had this initial idea that I had to get rid of Bashar. I thought, okay, what are you going to replace Bashar with? I started to search for an Islamic state. I left school. Within a few months, I left. When it came to creed, you really didn't have. As long as you fight with them, and you support Baghdad, you're getting this about being twisted. I was in prison 3 times in ISIS because of openly opposing. But I genuinely left because I disagreed with them. In prison, you can't really say I'm against or go. So I used to consider them not to be Muslims at all. This is not an Islamic state. I don't think anyone should join them. It's the last thing I should. I actually consider myself a coward for leaving. I wanted to fight the state.
So you can see in that video that there's the emotional content, there's the relatability aspect in that the speaker explains why he joined. He's not painted as somebody who's just, you know, an evil monster who joined because he wanted to be violent. People can see that they are like him, that they share his struggles. And then they see the lessons that he learned in the end and a warning as well. And then, of course, they can see more at therealjihad.org, which they are also able to click on in the ad. And they can see that it's produced by ICSB. So we're not hiding who we are. There have been previous campaigns that people think that they're from the CIA or something, and then, you know, they lose all credibility. So we're very clear about who's making the ad. So here are the videos that we've used in the campaigns. This can be viewed. We, you know, are able to send out the slides. Otherwise, you can see all of our videos on our website and at therealjihad.org. So I put offline in quotations here because when we first started the project back in January, February of 2020, we anticipated many in-person trainings and events. And we did the first one in person in The Hague in February of 2020, a training for the Dutch National Police, and then quickly moved online to Zoom conferences, which were a bit of a blessing in disguise because we've been able to host hundreds, if not thousands of people, not all in one meeting, but, you know, over 100 participants in many of our Zoom events covering lots of different subjects related to ISIS, related to rehabilitation of foreign fighters, related to children who are right now in the camps in Northeast Syria. And so these can all be watched also on our website in full, and we post the chat boxes as well so that people can see what everyone was saying during these meetings. And we've continued these throughout 2020 and into 2021 as well, with our most recent one on September 14th, but we have yet another one coming up December 1st. And so also, of course, with our deliverables, we've published a scholarly article regarding the results of the first campaign, as well as press articles in Homeland Security Today about the Instagram campaign and about many of our events that we've done. We've then done like fuller research articles. We also published a training manual for use with the counter narratives. So each of these counter narratives have a study guide, and I'm posting the link in the chat right now so that you can see the full counter narrative manual. But each video, and the ones that we use in our ads are shortened versions. They're 1 minute long, but there are longer, more complete versions that are about 3 to 7 minutes long. And each of those has an accompanying study guide with discussion questions, with Islamic scriptures that are related to the message of the study of the counter-narrative video, full transcripts, narrative descriptions, and we describe how teachers, social workers, prison workers, youth counselors, anyone who's working in this space can use these study guides to aid in their work. And so what are the achievements of the campaign? The first 7 campaigns included 141 individual ads when we count each language in each country. The videos have been watched for at least 15 seconds over 4 million times, and they've been watched in their entirety almost 2 million times. On average, about 42% of all 15-second views become complete views, which is a pretty high level of viewer retention. We've seen in other campaigns, about a 10% rate, so they're definitely engaging. And we also find that the longer viewers watch the videos, the more likely they are to watch the videos to the end. So when we see there's a 42% retention from 15 seconds to 100%, we see that there's nearly 74% of 45-second views that become complete views. So the longer people watch the videos, the more likely they are to complete them because they're becoming more engaged and more emotionally connected to the videos. And they also, of course, receive lots of reactions, being the haha, like, love, care, anger. Over 1,000 comments, many of them emotionally charged, many of them really insightful discussions about what is and is not Islamic, shares and saves. Our lessons learned. So our primary challenge was definitely the process of getting the ads up on Facebook. We were very lucky to have really great partnerships with Facebook, great people who worked with us to help us navigate this process. But because we run the ads with Facebook ad credits, there's a multi-stage review process. First, to see if we can run the ad at all. Second, to see if they will pay for the ad with ad credits. And third, to see if we're able to run it without a disclaimer, which is really important because if an ad is considered a political issue, then it has to be run with a disclaimer. And if it needs to be run with a disclaimer, it has to be run by somebody in the country where the video is being run, which means that we can't do that in 8 countries if we need a disclaimer. So having to make sure that the videos fit all of those different standards that did change throughout the course of the year for good reason, due to misinformation about COVID-19, about the US presidential election, lots of changing requirements that ended up making us need to change the videos on occasion. But as I said, this challenge was really mitigated a lot by our relationship with Facebook, who helped us throughout this process. And then, of course, there was the changing face of terrorist recruitment in the EU. As ISIS was defeated, there was less of a call to travel to terrorist groups, which was a focus of a lot of the videos, because these are videos of people who did travel to join ISIS. So they're generally talking about why people shouldn't travel. But after ISIS lost its territorial caliphate, there was more of a call for attacks at home or to financially support prisoners in Syria. So the advice of many of the videos not to travel doesn't really apply, but we needed to show that the denunciations of the group, still showing that the group is not Islamic, will not help you, that still applies. And so currently we're finishing the 8th campaign, as I said, and we'll publish a full report a little bit later on this year, hopefully this year. And we're also expanding the project to be run in other countries, including the Maldives, Trinidad and Tobago, and we're frequently running ad campaigns in Iraq and other countries in the Middle East and North Africa. We're also doing campaigns against white supremacism with a project called Escape Hate. And then we also have our Breaking the ISIS Brand Counter-Narrative Study Guide Manual, which I've already posted in the chat. And so finally, the added value of this project is that we've demonstrated through the viewer retention, through the emotional reactions to the campaigns, that there is utility in counter-narrative content for exposing the reality about ISIS to vulnerable audiences, and they do question what they may have heard from radicalizers and recruiters. And so we encourage people who are looking into how to widely counter the narratives that are spread by terrorist groups of all ilks, of ISIS, of far-right groups. Don't discount the utility of honest, authentic counter-narrative content that appeals to marginalized communities, that addresses the legitimate grievances of people who are vulnerable to radicalization. So you saw in the video that I showed, the speaker is talking about the real problems that he was having at home. And we urge people not to discount those, not to just paint a too rosy picture. And that is all. I will stop sharing. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Molly and Anne, for this good insight into your work. I think Anne has already also taken on quite a few of the questions in the chat. But still, I do believe that there are some more questions. I just want to remind everyone before we actually start like this Q&A session, for all of our participants here, if you do like to raise your question to to any one of the presenters, please just raise your digital hand. George has done it, and I can give you the floor, but the session is recorded, so if you do, you will appear on the recording. If you don't want to appear on the recording, just keep it at the chat. George, you have a first question. Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask about the Beyond Horizons partnership. Is that, was this connected to the redirect method? Did you redirect people from watching some content to watching your content? Did Facebook help you in that?
I feel bad that we didn't mention Beyond Horizons and DRAD because they were our partners in this project. But since we had such short time, we decided just to present it ourselves. But Beyond Horizons created all of the content that went on the Real Jihad website that had to do with where you receive help. So for instance, if a family member watched one of our videos and decided, I need to talk to my brother, he's getting too extreme, and tried to talk to him, but didn't know where to go, lives in Germany, they could find it on the website. And so Beyond the Horizons did all of that. DRAD is one of the organizations listed on the website because they actually do that work both in Germany and in Austria. And DRAD helped us to get some of our interviews for the content.
To clarify, we didn't do redirection. It was all through just the ads.
Okay, but you must have had quite a high budget in order to produce this amount of videos and this, or did you manage with a lower budget, with a restricted budget?
What we did is we brought our existing videos, sometimes cutting them down to a minute. So yes, that's why in the beginning I wanted to say that this was a project that had, it's a global project and had support from many different places. I saw the one comment on Qatar, and we've been very pleased working with Qatar, and no controversy whatsoever. It's very clear they want to fight terrorism and help us to do so. So the interviews had already been conducted, and some of them were still conducted during the grant time. And a lot of the videos we could produce with other funds. So yes, we did have help from lots of places. And then the EU paid for our time and our work putting these campaigns together.
Okay, thank you. And congratulations for calling it the real jihad. I think that's sort of is it implies content, and I could imagine how it could attract the audience.
We have a fantastic Sheikh Ali, who works with us, who has worked with me since Camp Buka. And I just was in prisons with him, watching him as he interacted with prisoners. And, you know, really putting forth a beautiful version of Islam. And I believe a true version. I mean, when we talk about religion, what's true? But showing people that were believing in extremist versions of Islam where that's not supported by the scriptures. And he's got the knowledge to be able to do that. And his posts are created to that if we catch somebody with a video, we send them over to the Real Jihad website, and we do find a considerable amount going there, that then they could explore and read for themselves. My ultimate vision is to have them on video, because I know people are not as much readers as probably all of us, and just love to consume content on video. But right now he's in a place where it's not safe for him to do that.
Yeah, I think actually this is one of the questions that I also wanted to ask, well, to both of the projects, because of course you are reaching out, and that's, well, will stimulate some form of discussion and comments, be it, well, either positive or negative. So, well, what do you do with any negative comments, and also how do you keep your team safe? Perhaps Antonella or George, you want to react on this first?
Yeah, I can start, and maybe George can add something that we are working on in this period. In terms of keeping the staff safe, since our campaign is actually co-created with the students and the young people, of course, we are the one publishing and keeping anonymously the posts, even if for the young people involved it was quite kind of difficult to create something and not having the credit for them. They wanted to be there, they wanted to be visible online, but we explained that it was really not necessary, and better to keep that post as something really just connected with the general pages of it, without any specific connections with any physical person. And for now, we are working on we actually want really stimulate some responses from the audience, also negative one, because this is something that can help us to engage people that can be vulnerable, because they're maybe already sympathizing or just being interested in some negative narrative that we want to counteract. So this is actually something that we would like to stimulate instead of escape from. We would like to create more and more provocative posts in order to actually create negative responses, and then engage these people for further discussion and further connections. Actually, in our project is foreseen the figure of a psychologist. In each country, we should have a person responsible for this, and this is what we would like to do in the next months, to stimulate more and more negative, and then engage people in further discussion for doing also kind of offline work.
I would say I think it's really important that think over the ethics of engagement, because in all of my interviews with people that have gone into different forms of extremism, oftentimes they're not in a good place psychologically, and they're easily manipulated, and we should definitely try to reach out and help them. But when we're on social media, you know, what becomes our responsibility then once you do start engaging and you don't really know where they are? I mean, they can be anywhere. And then as far as the question, so we've always decided not to actually engage. We've never had any threat. In all these 6 years, no one said, I'm going to come kill you. But we did see on YouTube in our Arabic channel that many people said, ISIS is not dead, we're coming back, that kind of thing. And it's always been really important to us to approach people with dignity. And as Molly said, you know, not to belittle them in any way, and to take seriously the grievances that made them vulnerable to going into ISIS. And I also see that question about measuring success and impact. I think Molly did go over that, but maybe George and Nella want to talk a little bit. But we look at how many people viewed it, how long they engaged, did they go over to the real jihad, and then we really look at how they comment and did it start a discussion among them. We don't enter that discussion, but we look at what was the tone of their questions or their comments. Does it look like we're getting through to them? And also, if we do get angry type comments, happiness that we're reaching our target audience.
Yeah, of course, it's always a well, sort of, you know, you're also doing good when you get the negative comments, because indeed that's a sign that people are emotionally moved, at least by your campaign. Yeah, George.
I think there's a difference also between Breaking the ISIS brand and our campaign, because we are a lot more general in the whole campaigning, and that is actually also the difficulty of this campaign, because we don't go for a specific part of the audience. Rather, we kind of deal with the overlap between extremist content and general societal content, which we are actually facing. And when you're dealing with jihadist content, you have a clearly designed target group, and it seems on the face of it also more dangerous, actually. And congratulations that you've avoided the pitfalls of that. But we in our project have the brief of engaging psychologists in order to deal with some of the social problems or the psychological problems that might move our target audience. And so we are experimenting with provoking them in order, because I mean, in a general campaign, you do get hate posts, and the more you get, actually, the more you see that you're actually touching a nerve in your audience, as you said. But the thing that we then have to do is to really engage, empathic listening techniques and motivational interviewing techniques and psychological techniques on the side of our psychologists to engage with the people. What we will be doing, for example, is we will add a hate button on our posts. It's sort of like, do you hate this post? Press this button, and then you can through that you get connected to a messaging that is asking you some basic questions about what motivates you, and then offering you the possibility of talking to a service provider, which is one thing that we want to do, but definitely not to engage with the target audience in order to convince them of other arguments or something like that, but just really deal with the psychological motivators of our target audience by getting those hate comments. And one of the strange things that we have is we don't have enough hate comments yet, which is a very strange thing to say, really, in that matter. But in order to be able to come into contact with the audience, we need actually to provoke them more. And we don't. And I think that's also in the different country teams that we have noticed that there is some reticence to the provocation part of our campaign. This is one of the issues of trying to arrange that. I think one of the lessons learned is probably that we also would profit from having more advertising, marketing expertise, and more psychological expertise in our teams. I think this is going to be one of the lessons learned, but we will see, because we are just in the middle of it yet.
Thanks, George. I really like your hate button idea as a sort of opposed to the like button, but even more so that you also have psychologists involved who are able to to take on contact with someone who then reports. So that's a good thing.
We have Robert Arel, for example, from who, I mean, there's also a particular interest to channel responders to exit work groups or things like that. That is actually the inherent purpose.
Yeah, very good. Just one question also for you, because Anne already touched upon indeed the question regarding the measuring of success and impact. How do you do this for the Commit campaign?
Well, actually, Antonella is the lead, but so we can do this together. I think that we have just the technical measurements of the Facebook engagement. So there we have close to 20,000 users, and on Instagram around 25,000, on TikTok only 4,000 yet. So we're like really still pushing, but we're slowly expanding, and we see certain themes, simply how many likes they get. So a football theme that we did, it got close to 37,000 likes, but then things go really down, in terms of you see what happens. I mean, the more provocative, they actually get more results. But basically, how we at this moment only measure the technical measurements that are available through the different Facebook sites and Instagram and TikTok.
Yeah, I can add that. Yeah, the indicators are more or less the same that Anne already mentioned, like number of views, number of users, number of interactions, and yeah, so we do a kind of quantitative analysis of the results and also qualitative in terms of what kind of posts are going well, are more viewed, and we push on that kind of post. Like we are realizing that the reels on Instagram are going very, very well in terms of views, and they are more catchy for the audience instead of simple posts. So we are going through them more and more, or in general that Facebook for our target audience is not really used anymore for youngest people. So we are using more Instagram and expanding on TikTok. And also, for example, the kind of posts who are really connected to hot issues in our countries, things that are going through the ongoing situation and polemics that are going on in our countries, they are more interesting, more catching the attention of the people. So this is what we do. We month by month analyze quantitative and qualitative the results of the posts already published and try to adjust the strategy according to this.
Your connection seems to be breaking a little bit, Antonella, but I think I got all of your reply here. So you're constantly still adjusting, also based on every campaign actually, or every post that you're putting out there. I do have a question for both campaigns, but I also want to stimulate everyone who is still watching to also ask their questions, either by raising your digital hand or putting it in the chat, because, well, I still have a ton of questions, but I would also be very keen in addressing the audience's questions. Perhaps then I'll just take this moment to continue also on the platforms, because Antonella and George, you mentioned that you use quite a lot of platforms like Instagram and TikTok also, and that you have used also Facebook, but that it wasn't really a success. So how do you know where to find your target audience? Like, how do you know which platforms to use?
I hope my connection will going well, because outside there is a big storm going on in this moment. Yeah, as I mentioned before, our campaign is co-created with young people. So we met between April and June, university students of communications, and now, and also before, during these months, we are doing workshops and training in school with people, in our case here in Palermo, with young people in high school between 16 and 18 years old, So they are actually the ones who are helping us or understanding which is the language of their age, which are the platforms they are in. So yeah, at the beginning we started with Facebook and Instagram, and we are continuing on both platforms, but we know that Instagram is the one for that age range. And now we are starting to explore TikTok, even if it's quite difficult for us because we are it's more adult. We don't use this platform at all. So we are like exploring and together with young people understanding how to use it, because yeah, our objective is prevention. So we want to provide critical thinking tools and elements for young people to use social media in a more conscious way. So if they are on TikTok, there it's where we should be for reaching them, for talking with them.
Okay, great. So you're really using with the help of your target audience, you're finding out what could be the best platforms. That's great. Yeah. So that in that case, also in terms of language, you can kind of test what works well and what doesn't. Perhaps Molly, how was that for you? Because you have been using Facebook as a primary source, and of course also one of the campaigns on Instagram, but that didn't seem as successful. Like, how do you know whether Facebook was the right platform to use?
Well, Facebook is certainly the biggest platform, and in a lot of countries outside the West, it's still the most popular. And of course, we're supported by Facebook, so to be able to reach as many people as we do would be very expensive without the Facebook ad credits. But yeah, it's definitely, Facebook skews older. So our viewers, the plurality, are usually between 18 and 35, sometimes slightly older. But Instagram is definitely younger, TikTok is younger, but the formatting will need to change because the ways that our videos work, they're really successful in gaining attention from Facebook viewers who are used to watching slightly longer videos. They're good on YouTube as well. They get a lot of views and comments on YouTube in addition, but not for younger viewers on Instagram, and we expect it would be the same thing on TikTok. So certainly that's a good place to go, but it will need to be a different format.
Yeah, which would mean like having a total different video. So it's of course very costly to develop. Yeah,
it's not that costly to do reels on Instagram and TikTok. I think all you need really is very good graphic artists that do this for you. I think that is one of the advantages. I mean, the two posts, also the Donald Trump post, was not really very expensive to produce. So I mean, this is one of the advantages of these media. But I think also, could it be that the jihadist audience is older than what happened with us actually is that we were supposed to cover all kinds of extremism and radicalism, but we more and more, because of the general nature of the campaigns, veered towards right-wing extremism. So, and could it be that there is a difference also in age groups with the jihadist audience? Sorry to say jihadist audience, kind of a ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't know that there's a difference in age group. I don't think that there is in terms of, the type of people who would travel to join, because that's all, the fighting age. And we've also seen a lot of jihadist content on Instagram in particular, and those are younger people in their, teens and early 20s who are posting a lot of that content.
Oh, and if you want to talk, you need to unmute.
There is an age spectrum, and you can catch the most people with Facebook, but you will maybe lose some younger ones that are on TikTok and Instagram. But there's a huge age spectrum. I mean, I think we go up to age 40, don't we, Molly, in our campaigns? And we catch people of all different ages looking like they're supporting. Same thing on YouTube. So if you want to do your best job, you want to be on as many platforms as possible, but then your expenses mount. And for us, we were campaigning in multiple languages. And like you were saying, George, you have to consider the context. So maybe you would pick this video for that audience in that country. And we did some of that. We changed videos in different countries towards the end.
Towards the end, you said?
Yes, I think so. I don't know. Molly knows better than I do.
Actually, the reverse.
Okay.
We were, well, we choose different videos for different regions. So when we've done our videos in Trinidad, we use a Trinidadian speaker. For the first EU campaigns, we did a different video in every country, and we found that there was not a lot of pattern that we were seeing in that, you know, people who saw a video with a speaker from their own country weren't necessarily watching it longer than people who were watching, you know, a speaker from another country. Rather, we saw that certain speakers were just performing better across the board than other speakers. And so we started using just the very best videos with the most emotional content instead of specifically targeting, although, you know, they're all in Europe. So there is some level of targeting there.
Yeah, well, that's a very interesting outcome, that actually you notice that it's like some local accent, so to say, or like a nationality didn't really matter in terms of, well, how many people would watch, that it was mostly how well someone could speak, or how emotionally involved. Yeah, and what about, so then if you have those videos and you translate them, is it just a subtitle that appears, or how do you go about the translating?
Yeah, it's a subtitle. Most of the speakers are speaking in English because that's the language that they were interviewed in. Not always, but a lot of them are in English. And then we have really amazing translators who do that, volunteer to translate the scripts for us, and then we subtitle all of the videos.
Okay, well, that's a nice way. And George and Antonella, you also mentioned one of your challenges is having to deal with, well, European campaign, but then also on a national or even local level. And you also have several sort of brands of the Commit project. Is this your way of dealing with that challenge, or do you have any other lessons that you learned in dealing with the challenge?
Yeah, at the beginning, the doubt was if using just a unique page, a unique channel, publishing there all the contents, but then we prefer to have a European page and then national pages for being more targeting to our audience, and also create more specific content related to our national context. So in some cases, at the beginning, we used posts directly created by the participants of our training in national languages, for example. And then we translated them in English for promoting them in the European Common page. And now we are working in a opposite way, since we are working in a European message before as a more general one, and then we translate that general message in national ones. And when I talk about translation, it's not just a matter of language, but also a kind of adaptation to national specificities, or kind of referring to any specific fact happening in the country that can be valuable for the audience. So this is a bit dispersive in terms of audience and people that we can reach. We won't have like thousands of followers in our pages, but we hope that it's more effective in terms of reaching the target audience in our country. That in Italy, not all young people especially can speak and in English and read in English, so this was our strategy at the end.
I see. And George, I think you mentioned in the presentation also that you worked in sort of tandems while creating the posts, and I'm just intrigued. Why is that?
In order to bind, in order to have a European campaign, basically. We have all these different, we have 4 different countries, which is very interesting in terms of context. And in order to bind us all into one creative unit, it is worthwhile to create some kind of structure like that. But you also need some kind of a scenario for that. So you need to have themes that are structured. Then you have the different tandems who work on it in different time spaces. So that does work. I think Antonella, I think our European campaign in terms of reach is weaker at this moment than our local campaigns, as far as I can see, because it is a 4th English-speaking campaign that is running everywhere. So that there we also want to augment things, but then again we can take the best posts from each country and put them onto the European campaign, basically. But all of this, like I said, we still have 7 months ahead of us, where we are trying out more and more of these methods. The main thing was really to create a strong creative team out of those 4 different countries, organizations.
Yeah, I can imagine that was also an organizational challenge sometimes.
Ella does a very good job in coordinating us already.
Happy to hear that. Looking at the time, we have a few minutes left, and I actually think there is one question that was posted in the chat that wasn't yet answered, and this concerns the well, two parts, and I'm just gonna read it right now. So, what role do non-discourse based initiatives have on online campaigns? For example, activities on forums or the creation of online communities. And also, how do you view the synergies between the online and offline activities? So the online video campaigns, and perhaps some more on-site initiatives such as dance competitions or even youth art contests. Perhaps Molly, I don't know if you want to respond first, or otherwise just any one of you who is willing to respond. I don't know, maybe otherwise Antonella, yeah?
I can add something. As already mentioned, in our case, the offline, we can say, and online activities were very connected, because the first phase of the project was really training and workshops and capacity building, and then together with the young people, the content of the campaign were created and are created. And for the second phase, we are thinking of other offline activities for giving more strength to our campaign, actually. One of the activities, for example, is a kind of a competition between the young people participating to the workshop. for kind of motivating them, but also, yeah, for engaging them in a catchy way, for creating the best content after all the training path. What you have learned, just put it in a post, and then we will publish and make them voted by the whole school. So in this way, we can involve the whole school community, for example. This is something that we will do in January, for example. And also another activity that is included in our project is the development of a kind of commit declaration. We said, because also the acronym commit, it's willing to invite people to act. So the university students involved in the first phase of the training, they created a kind of manifesto, kind of a set of rules, a declaration for disseminating positive use of the social media through their peers. And we are going to put this declaration in the website and launch a kind of online petition for the people to click and join and commit also themselves to this set of rules. And we are also thinking to do something also offline to spread this kind of declaration, maybe some gadgets or t-shirts or anything that we can distribute in events. Or thank you for the suggestion of dance competition or anything else. It can be useful. This is something that we will do also in the next months.
Nice. In that case, you also have a very clear call to action, which is related even to your project name. So I guess that's going to be a very strong one. George, you wanted to add?
Well, no, I just want to say in general, behavior change and norm change, how to create these things is a whole area of study and research. And we all know that actually online activities need to be coupled with offline activities in order to embed any kind of norm or behavior change, really. And you see this actually in the recruiting tactics of the extremists who try to get people into the offline space after contacting them in the online space. So in general, it always has to be in any kind of campaign. I think you have to couple I really cannot. I find it really hard to believe that any online campaign that is only online can succeed in. But actually, wait a second. No, Breaking the ISIS brand is an only online campaign. Molly and Anne, wait a second.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
before I say what I was going to say. Oh, okay. All right. So you guys are succeeding in doing an only online campaign and changing behavior.
Well, I want to specify that, the campaign that we run is online. That's why I froze up a little bit there. But we're directing people to therealjihad.org where they can access resources that are offline or that are online but are one-to-one. Still, face-to-face, in person, not necessarily in person, but are working directly with somebody because that is really powerful. We're not expecting a video that goes out to everybody to be the whole thing, but rather to be a first step. And our offline activities, including our Zoom, events are also aimed at helping other people who work in this space to utilize our counter-narrative videos in their offline work, whether they're working with kids or with returnees, whoever they're working with, to utilize our videos.
So put it in the chat. Oh yeah, Anne, go ahead.
I put it in the chat that my favorite story of our videos is Omar Mulbokus. I saw him at a conference and he raised his hand and he said, "These videos work." I used him in a counseling session. He was seeing a kid that was hell-bent on going to Raqqa, 13-year-old. And he said, at the third session, "I thought I'm going to lose him. He won't show up again. He'll have gone to Syria." And I was racking my brain and I remembered your videos. So I showed him one also of a 13-year-old that was spoke about being set up to be a suicide bomber. And he said, you know, that's what's going to happen to you. And the kid changed his mind. So we hope that counselors that are doing face-to-face interventions might find uses for these videos. And we also hope that all the information in them is useful. And as Molly said, we just put out our counter-narrative manual for the EU, which tells how to use them, what each and every video study guide, so that they could be used in schools and in discussion groups, perhaps at mosques, community centers. But we just simply don't have the bandwidth or the resources to be the people that are doing that kind of work.
Yeah, but of course you are still delivering the content for others who can then hopefully implement it within their work. So yeah, that is a great story indeed. Thanks for sharing, Anne.
And there's 250 videos now.
Wow, that is a lot. We are getting to the end of the session, and before I end with all the boring practical stuff, in the meanwhile, we will have our survey link up in the chat, but I would like to invite all of our speakers here to maybe think of your #1 advice for other CSOs or practitioner organizations maybe who want to create an alternative or counter-narrative campaign. What is the #1 advice you want to give to them? And I'll just let you decide who has an advice first, can go first.
Okay, know your target group is the first advice. Really know your target group.
That is a very important advice. Thank you, George.
I would say, like I've been saying for years and years, that this can't just be cognitive, that take a lesson from advertisers, take a lesson from terrorists themselves, that they message with really emotional-based content, and they address grievances and so on. So get to those same issues if you want to effectively reach the same target group that the terrorists are reaching.
Thank you very much, Anne. That's a very good one indeed as well. Antonella or Molly?
I can say to really allocate a lot of time and resources in terms of people and also budget. It's really needed for having an impactful and effective campaign to plan a lot of time for strategy planning and working on research for really understanding what to do, not to improvise. It's really, as George said, there is a lot of competition and a lot of awareness raising activities out there. So in order to really be effective, the work before the campaign launch is very, very important.
Thanks. Yeah, creating a good campaign takes a lot of time and effort. Molly, then, the final advice we can get today.
Well, I can make mine in the same line as Antonella's in the kind of practical realm. It's been incredibly helpful to us to have a good working relationship with Facebook. And I think, whatever platform you're using to really make personal contacts with them can be incredibly helpful when you're dealing with restrictions or different problems reaching your target audience, challenges with the content, with the platform itself, to have that working relationship to make sure that they know what you're doing and why you're doing it. That can be very, very useful.
Yes, that's a very good one indeed, to prevent your contacts from being blocked and not being able to do what you are set out to do. Okay, thanks a lot to the four of you. I think this has been a very insightful and interesting session. Thanks a lot also to the people who have been watching. I hope you found it useful as well. Please do not forget to click on the survey link that is put in the chat. just takes a few minutes of your time, and it really helps us in improving our future events. And with that, I would like to conclude, and I wish you all a very good day, rest of the day from wherever you are watching. Thanks a lot, everyone, and we hope to see you soon at another event.